I think that a lot of creatives do have process and structure, but they don't recognize it. It's so innate to how they create and how they think that they're just simply unaware of it. But the problem with that is that if you're unaware of it, it means you can't really use it to your advantage.
Welcome to the New World Normal podcast. I'm Debbie Harrell, your host, and twice a month I'm speaking with some amazing humans who are disrupting norms and working to create a more inclusive and holistic society. These people are using their sphere of influence, no matter how large or small, to positively impact the world around them. They'll be sharing their expertise as well as sharing stories of resiliency and hope. We'll be talking about the issues that are affecting us all, from the environment, human rights, social issues, criminal justice, and education. We'll talk about our healthcare systems, wellness, and food, from how it's cultivated and distributed to how it's prepared and consumed. Basically, we're going to talk about all the systems in our society that aren't necessarily working for the benefit of the many. We'll strategize and collaborate on how we as a collective can intentionally make better choices every day that will lead to a positive change in the world around us. Because in the end, it's up to us to solve these problems. There is no magic potion or magic wand. It is us and our daily choices and how we spend our time and how we invest our resources. Intrigued? Stick around and have a listen, and by all means, click like or subscribe on your favorite podcast source. Have you ever struggled to reach goals or develop new habits? I mean, you've read the books, you bought the planners, you downloaded the apps, but your goals remain a little elusive, just out of reach, having you wonder, is it me? Or is there even a system or method that actually works? Well, today's guest is disrupting the way we set and strive for our goals. She's encouraging us all to question the goals themselves. Why are we setting them? Are we setting them with intention, or are they full of societal and cultural shoulds and have-tos? Today, we're talking to Tara McMullin. She's a writer, podcaster, and producer, and for over 13 years, she's studied small business owners, how they live, how they work, what influences them, and what they hope for the future. She is the author of a new book that I'm super excited to read called What Works? A Comprehensive Framework to Change the Way We Approach Goal Setting. The book challenges the lessons we've learned about goals and productivity through culture and proposes a radical shift, structuring our lives around practice rather than achievement. She is the host of the What Works podcast, and Tara is also the co-founder of Yellow House Media, which is a boutique podcast production company. Her work has been featured in Fast Company, The Startup, The Muse, and The Huffington Post. And I'm so grateful that she decided to spend some time with me on the New World Normal podcast, disrupting some goal-setting norms. So I hope you enjoy our conversation. Welcome to the New World Normal podcast, Tara. I'm very excited to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Today, I am talking with Tara McMullin, who has a new book coming out called What Works? And it's all about setting goals. And so today we're going to talk about disrupting how we usually think about setting goals and hear a little bit more about what her take is on the topic. What do you think about that, Tara?
Yeah, sounds good to me. Do you want me to dive in?
Yeah, I wanted to read a little bit from your intro that really spoke to me and what I feel my purpose is these days. You were talking about how we usually set goals and the questions we might ask ourselves, like, how come this isn't working? What can I do to give myself better chances of actually, like getting the planner and the accountability buddy, which I like to call an accountability buddy.
Nice.
But you say that we should actually be asking ourselves other questions. And I'm going to read it straight from the introduction. This book is about those questions, the questions about cultural narratives and moral systems, the questions about the holes we're trying to fill, that we keep adding these responsibilities, and the questions about whether society's shoulds and supposed tos are even worth pursuing. And I love that, because that is one thing I work with my clients, is to turn off autopilot and really examine your shoulds and have tos. So many of those have tos, I'm like, are they really have tos? So maybe you could tell us a little bit more about those questions and what led you to realize that those were really the key.
Sure. So I've been working with small business owners, creatives, independent workers for the last 14 years or so. And anytime you're working with business owners or, that kind of very driven person, a major topic is goal setting, right? And kind of on the back end of that, planning and how do you actually get the stuff done and how do you manage your time and how do you keep moving forward when things get hairy? And so in that process, I've heard, I think, every question that one could ask about goals. How do I set realistic goals? How do I make plans I can stick to? How do I decide what goal to set in the first place? What kind of planner do I need? What kind of system do I need to work on? How do I make this a SMART goal, right? There's this laundry list of questions that people want to know about the particular goals that they're setting. And that's typically where the conversation starts. And the conversation typically doesn't go much further than that either. But what I noticed for me and in time with the people that I was working with as well is that there was actually a lot more underneath the surface of why we were setting the goals that we were setting, why we might be getting stuck on particular goals or thinking that we need to set particular goals. And so I was really interested in picking that apart and kind of understanding what are the stories that we are telling ourselves? What are the stories we're living in? What are the beliefs that make up this sort of culture around goal setting? And that's when I started to think about how so many of the goals that we set and also the manner in which we go about achieving those goals is really structured in stories of overcoming. So, like overcoming differences, overcoming being, for me, being autistic, overcoming being an introvert, overcoming this, that, and the other thing. Or they're goals that are rooted in what culture tells us success looks like, what productivity looks like, what making money looks like, what having a good career looks like, right? And these narratives are everywhere. We are saturated with messages about the kinds of goals that we should be setting, and also how those goals make us better people, right? We get tricked into thinking, oh, if I set this goal and achieve this goal, then I will be worthy. I'll be valued. I'll be useful in my community. And so, yeah, like I said, I was really interested in kind of picking those pieces apart and examining, if we look at what those stories are, if we start to identify those messages, how does that change the way we think about what we want out of life, the milestones we might be looking to hit along the way, and even down to the point of asking, do we really want to set goals at all? Or do we want to structure our lives in different ways that are more holistic, more disruptive, better accommodating of our actual capacity and resources? And so both for me in the process, but then also, sharing it with people over the years, I've realized, no, I'm not really interested personally in setting goals anymore. I'm not personally interested in striving for particular achievements or accomplishments. What I'm really interested in is exploring new ways of being, new ways of showing up, and new ways of practicing the things that are really important to me.
I love that last line that you just said. And it's something that I've been trying to lean more into. I do a weekly, I call it Dream and Plan Sundays with my community and show up. Some people are setting very specific goals and time blocking, but I'm like, it's not just for that. Like if you want to hold on to a certain type of feeling throughout the week,
Mhm.
if you want to feel, I've one phrase that's been sticking with me lately is protect my peace. So like if
Mm.
you want to have more peace in your day, come and figure out how you can structure your week if it's like that kind of system, or maybe you just want to journal about what are the things that are making you feel more peaceful. Like there's so many different ways. There's a couple other things you mentioned that I wanted to touch on. The goals that help us overcome certain ways of
Mhm.
being, like we've spending a lot more time thinking and talking about neurodivergent people. Like, I know I've come to realize that I process more like someone with ADD, which
Mhm.
I don't know if that was with me all along or because of circumstances. I've had some experience with trauma over the last several years, and I know that really changes the way you move through your life
Mhm.
and encountering other people who are neurodivergent. And it's always like we have to overcome that, or the introvert part of it. And it's like, but do we really? Are we deficient in some way, or are we just different? And is different necessarily have to be less than? I don't know. I don't think so. Especially as an introvert, because my whole life you're taught that, like extrovert's what you want to be. Like, what, it's too bad you're so quiet and shy. I'm like, but wait a minute. Wait a minute. I still have value, don't I? Just because I'm quiet, I have all these other skills. And I feel like more and more people are recognizing the strengths and power in being more introverted. You're more able to notice these things like that we're talking about right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, for me, so part of the origin story of the book and this thought process for me is that one day I was at the gym and the thought crossed my mind, maybe I could just change my personality, because I was noticing that it was my personality, it was my way of being that was getting in the way of a lot of the things that I knew I should be doing to reach other goals, to reach bigger goals, right? Like, I knew that relationships, right? Like, I know that even more than necessarily being really charismatic or really outgoing, it's about building a network of relationships that can propel someone to success. And I've had some success with that over the years, but not like the kinds of people that I was looking at as role models, right? These people had massive networks. They were amazing. They were amazing friends. Like, these people are awesome. But I've never been that person. I've never been the kind of person who has a whole stable of friends. A client actually asked me if I was going to throw a party for my book launch, and I was like, I literally don't have anyone here to invite to a party for my book. It'll just be my husband and I, and it will be wonderful. But, that was a thing that I could see. Okay, if only I could overcome this, if only I could become the kind of person who has lots of friends and close relationships and keeps in touch with people really well, I could be more successful. I could make more money. I could have a bigger impact, all of these different things. That can be true. And also, why would I want, like, there are so many things about me and my personality as it is now that make me good at what I do, that, yeah, also make it hard for me to have a lot of close friends or to network in that way, to build those kind of relationships. But I don't think I wouldn't, not, I don't think, I would never want to give up the things that make me good at what I do. And all of this kind of falls under the umbrella of autism for me, in that I process emotions differently. I process relationships differently. I process information differently. And it's that processing information differently that makes my work stand out, right? My process of meaning making and sense making is what allows me to be really good at what I do, and allows me to do things in a way that really stand out to the people who care about them, because no one else is doing it, because no one else thinks like, like my weird little brain. But I also can recognize, well, all right, I'm not going to have a huge stable of friends. I'm not going to have a huge network. What do I want my career to look like? What do I want my work to look like? What do I want my business to look like? Accepting that, right? Instead of thinking, oh, this is something I need to change. This is something I need to overcome in order to have this thing that I've been told that I want, or that I actually want because of the systems that we operate in. What if I accept, no, I'm not going to have a massive network. I'm not going to have tons of friends. What can my business look like then? what can my career look like then? What can my work look like then? As a sort of a business thinker, I'm really, really keen on putting our personal priorities first as we think about how we would sort of want to solve the equation of what does our business look like. And so for me specifically, like that was one of those things. One of my personal priorities, my personal variables in this equation is that I'm not going to have a massive network, at least in the same way that others do. And so how do I solve the rest of the equation accepting that? So that's, yeah.
That is the awareness. What a gift you gave yourself in that.
Mm-hmm.
This is who I am, and I'm going to lean into this. And I related so much to when you were saying that. I just need to change my entire personality.
Exactly.
And as I'm relating to that, like, I totally get that. I'm also like, this is so sad. Like, to realize, okay, it's not just me feeling like I need to change my entire personality, but how many other people are out there thinking like, why can't I just be more like Tony Robbins? Like when he has got to be the complete opposite of my personality style. I mean, he's great. He's doing amazing work, but there's just not something I'm going to do. So why would I even attempt? But I feel like so many people are trying to strive to be somebody that they're not.
Yeah.
Because like you said, these systems that are in place, and from the get-go, I believe, I'd love to hear your thoughts, that our school system was set up for industrial revolution to make us good little workers. It's all very competition based. We're always striving to be better than the person next to us, as opposed to like, what if we strive to work with that person next to us and like take my skills and their skills, their strong suits, my strong suits, which are probably very different, and work together for a common goal. How different would life be if we were able to just magically? I often wish I had a magic wand to change some of these systems that are so ingrained. And we don't even realize that the way we're operating is because of that.
Yeah.
It's not by happenstance.
Yeah. My podcast episode for this week is about hustle culture and the productivity wage gap and like why we think we have to work in the ways that we do. And one of the pieces of that for me is recognizing that not only do we learn from a young age how to be good, productive workers, we learn, we kind of absorb through osmosis this sense that at any point in time, everything could fall apart around us, right? We live in an inherently precarious economy, culture, social structure, all of that, because it's so individualist, it is so precarious. Because there are so few safety nets, everything is precarious. And so part of that will to change, right? To become someone new, to fit that mold of what success looks like, I believe is a logical response to the instability and precarity in daily life, right? But just because it's a logical response doesn't mean it's the right response.
Or the healthy response.
Or the healthy response. It's definitely not the healthy response. And that's not to say that I don't believe in growth, that I don't believe in change. I believe in lots of growth and lots of change and curiosity and exploration. But I'm interested in that not as a reaction to circumstances that are out of my control and that I don't agree with, that are not in line with my values. And instead, what does growth and change and curiosity and exploration look like in alignment with what I believe, what my values are, and still in a way that meets my needs, right? And those needs being very broadly defined. So there are financial needs, right? There's relational needs, but there's also health needs, right? And mental health needs and needs for rest. How do I get all of those needs met? And I'm not saying that that's an easy question to answer, but I think it's, if one is looking to sort of reprogram that sense that I need to change. I need to become someone different. I need to attain this, that, or the other thing. I think it's a really valuable question to even just think about. It doesn't have to necessarily have an answer, but thinking about the question, living with the question, and experimenting with different things can be a real way to, if not create stability, it can create a lot more satisfaction. It can create a sense of enoughness. It can create a sense of worthiness. And that's a really great way to push back on some of the more toxic components of our culture.
If you're enjoying this conversation, you'll love the discussions happening in the New World Normal community, where we meet regularly to discuss personal growth and social issues. Because we know when we do our work, we're better able to navigate this ever-changing world. Be sure to follow the link in the show notes for more information. Grounding in your worthiness, regardless of how productive you are, I think is huge. I had a client come to me this week, and she said something to the effect, unless I'm being productive 24/7, like every minute of the day, I just don't feel like I'm going to be successful. And I'm like, can you please repeat that? That is a lot. I'm exhausted just hearing you say that. And she meant it to her core. And I don't feel she's alone in that productivity spiral of you mentioned hustle culture.
Mm-hmm.
As a new entrepreneur, that's one thing I feel myself getting sucked into and nope, that's not me. That's not me. I can't do it. But it is so ingrained that you're not going to be successful unless you are hustling 24/7. And I'm happy, very happy to hear that there is another way. And you have researched and written about, and you have experienced that it does work in another way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One of the big components of the book is shifting our orientation from achievement to practice. And I think that when we get so oriented to achievement, which, I'm an overachiever, achievement oriented, from way back kind of person. I was that annoying person in school that was, crying in the bathroom if I didn't get an A on the test, right? I know this place, right? That is the genesis of this whole book, this whole line of thought. But when we get so oriented to that, it's really hard to be curious. It's really hard to be flexible and adaptable, because the only thing that matters is taking the next step toward that achievement. And I think most people, even people who are a little kind of turned off by traditional goal setting advice, have an experience of that, right? Where you've got that single-mindedness on a particular goal, or even if you don't have the single-mindedness, maybe you've gotten down on yourself because you didn't hit a particular goal. For me, which was very much my experience, for me, pulling that back and saying, okay, what achievement doesn't matter. What matters is that I show up and practice to the standards that I have in the way that I want to, on a daily basis or weekly basis or monthly basis, whatever the time frame is. How does that practice then allow me to grow, allow me to explore, and allow me to stay really flexible and curious about what my next steps might be? And in that way, I'm never striving toward a particular goal or accomplishment. And instead, I'm really looking at each day as it comes, which is not to say that I don't plan ahead. I absolutely plan ahead. But that planning ahead is a work in progress. It's always a learning opportunity, as opposed to this really rigid set of steps that I need to take to get to a particular endpoint.
I feel like you're making a really good point about this being hyper focused on particular goals or desires outweighing the importance. And especially in the last several years, we've learned the importance of being adaptable and flexible, because there's so much uncertainty. You say the system is uncertain by design to begin with, But in recent history, we've had like all these extra layers of uncertainty, and it doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. There's still so much in play and in flux. And so how are you going to deal with that on your day-to-day basis? Not just business-wise, right? But personal. Like
Mm-hmm.
all this is so highly personal, and it's in our face day after day. We're going into election. I think this podcast will come out after the midterm. So it'll be a whole new world, possibly. Who
Oh
knows? Oh my
God.
gosh. Now I'm stressed.
Oh, yeah.
But leaning into that, practicing who I am,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's part of like who I am. What do I want out of the world? And I like to look at my goals, not just in a personal, like I have the business, the personal, and then more global, right? What
Mm-hmm.
kind of world do I want to live in? And are my personal and business goals aligned with that kind of world and
Yeah.
moving us as the collective, right? Because we get caught up in the individual. This is what I want in my life. And then we kind of forget, oh yeah, there's all this other stuff going on. Where I say like, oh, I really care about the environment, but you know, every day I'm buying a plastic bottle that's ending up in a landfill, like these little things that we're doing that aren't necessarily aligned with the bigger goals that I believe most of us have.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that practice and that keeping that room for flexibility, and because whatever's going to happen in a couple weeks might cause us to need to shift.
Yeah.
So I think that's very important. And I'm
Yeah.
glad that you're highlighting that.
Thank you.
Some other things that you had mentioned earlier, and I'm really excited to hear that you started working with, you mentioned creatives.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times when you think of creative people and goal setting, they're like, oh yeah, I don't do that. I don't do that.
Yeah.
And so this way of thinking, way of goal setting feels to me like it might be more resonant with creative souls. Do you find
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think first and foremost, I define creatives pretty broadly. I did an interview uh, with a podcaster named Kathy Onetto the other day, and she asked me what I thought of the phrase left-brained creative. And I was like, Kathy, I love it. That's me. I am a left-brained creative. She's a left-brained creative. In that, my creativity tends to be expressed through analysis and frameworks and right. It's
I'm like,
not.
I want to interrupt. I'm so freaked out.
Yeah.
Yes. Because so many times when artists specifically will be like, well, it's just my creative, like talking about creatives as others, I'm like, everybody is creative. There's lots of
Mhm.
different ways to be creative, like whether I can draw a picture is one, but like, what about creative problem solving? Like
Yeah.
there's so many ways to be creative. So yes, I'm in. I'm in with the left brain creatives. Is
Awesome.
there a
I will
club I
let
can
Kathy
join? Do I get a
know.
t-shirt?
Yeah, I
I'll make
know.
them.
I told her, I was like, get the domain name, trademark that, um, all of the things, like get all of the things on that right now because I love it and I will help you make it a thing. So yes, so I'm a left brain creative. I've worked with a lot of left brain creatives, but I've also worked with a lot of artists, makers, designers, people who do identify more in the traditional bucket of what a creative is. And yeah, I've gotten a ton of pushback from them over the years on structure and on systems and on goal setting or, even setting a particular target, right? There's lots of pushback on that. And it frustrated me for a really long time. It's like, can't you see that you'd be so much better off with a process and a routine and some structure here. And I do actually believe that. But I think what I didn't understand for a really long time was that structure and that process doesn't have to look a particular way. What's important is that it's there and that it's intentional and that we're aware of it. I think that a lot of creatives do have process and structure, but they don't recognize it. It's so innate to how they create and how they think that they're just simply unaware of it. But the problem with that is that if you're unaware of it, it means you can't really use it to your advantage, right? You can't make it better. You can't think about the ways in which it might be getting you stuck over here and helping you out over there. And like, what could we do about that? Could I adjust this process? And so a big part of what my work is about on an even broader scale, but definitely what the book is about too, is really thinking about how can I bring awareness to structure and process and practice that I already have or that I'd like to have in a way that works for me. So it doesn't have to be, putting all of your tasks in your project management system. It doesn't have to be getting out all the goal setting worksheets and, filling things out and tracking all the numbers, right? It does not have to be that. I would argue that it probably shouldn't be that. But if that works for you, cool. Instead, it's how can we bring awareness to the process? How can we build a structure, an infrastructure for your life, for your work, for whatever that feels really good to you, that actually feels supportive to you as opposed to constraining and constricting. So I think creatives definitely benefit from this system or from this thought process. But I think it really benefits anyone, which is everyone, who values sort of being able to set their own agenda and do their own thing, but with intention, right? And not just willy-nilly, but with an idea of, I'm going to figure out what works for me. I'm going to figure out how I want to approach growth and exploration and curiosity and apply that in my life to become the person that I want to be and to do the things that I want to do.
You are speaking my language, right down to saying willy-nilly. And for me, and it's actually come up to this morning several times, awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So many of us, I feel like, don't even realize that we're not aware and in touch with us. And I would argue, this is a little plug for working with a coach or a consultant or a mentor
Mm-hmm.
to help reflect that back to you. You were saying these creatives that have this process, but aren't even aware of it. So how can they use it to their advantage if they're not even aware it's there? So that is huge, big stuff. And, oh, I know what I wanted to talk to you about. A tool that might be helpful. I know it would be helpful to my client that thinks she needs to be working 24/7 and she's not accomplishing enough. You did a little exercise. I told you I was watching that talk you did where I forget what you called it, zero something, where the time
zero-based
block,
scheduling.
yes, the entire day and schedule in everything. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think it's a great tool. And I think everybody, whether they actually try to live it once, but just to write it out as an exercise seems like it would be very helpful.
It is. Yes, absolutely. So I don't remember when I first heard about zero-based scheduling, but I do know that when I heard about zero-based scheduling, I said, oh, hell no. That is not for me. I will die. That is how I felt about it. It was a little too left-brained even for me. So zero-based scheduling is essentially taking your calendar and filling every block on it. So every minute of every day, 24/7. Obviously, sleep should be a very large block on that, but it's still a block on the zero-based schedule. Waking up is on the calendar. Coffee is on the calendar. Workout is on the calendar. Family time, TV time, all of these things, they're on the schedule. In addition to, obviously, all of your appointments and meetings throughout the week, and then also all of your workload. So, and I think that this would be helpful even for people who are not self-employed. It's like actually taking a look at your workload and saying, okay, when do I get this stuff all done? How long do I take on each task? Is there a particular day of the week that I prefer to do this task or that task? And what happens as you start to fill all of this in is that you start to notice where you are just completely beyond your capacity, right? Because the vast majority of us we want to do X, Y, and Z. We need to do A, B, and C, but there simply isn't enough hours in the day. And we don't know because we get through life just squeezing more and more in, right? We overcompensate over here. We compromise quality over there. We get more and more efficient over time. And instead of enjoying that efficiency, we cram more in, right? But zero-based scheduling really makes it obvious where you are not giving yourself what you need to do what you do in the way that you want to do it. So what I recommend in the book, what really worked for me was instead of completely restructuring my life around zero-based scheduling, I did it for about 6 weeks. And in that 6 weeks, I put on all my notifications. So like literally I would get my watch would buzz, not only when I had a Zoom meeting, but also when I was supposed to be working on my newsletter and when I was supposed to be making my podcast and when I was supposed to be doing email, right? My watch would tell me and my phone would tell me and my computer would tell me it's time for this task now. And I would like to say that I always listened to it, but I did not,
You're such a rebel.
I know I am a human being with human needs and desires. And one of those is to not do everything my computer tells me to do, oddly enough. But what I noticed over those 6 weeks was when I had not given myself enough time for a particular task, when I had forgotten things that needed to be done, that I would have tried to squeeze in at the end of the day or squeeze in while I was eating lunch or whatever. I noticed all of those things and I started to notice what my actual limits were. And zero-based scheduling gave me a framework for understanding when I needed to say no. And when I needed to say no was a heck of a lot more often than I thought it was, right? I am a naturally productive person. I work really fast. I produce a lot. Ask anyone who listens to my podcast or subscribes to my newsletter. I produce just a vast amount of stuff every week, right? And so I'd always gotten by on knowing that I could do it fast. And so anytime someone asked, oh, can you do this for me? Would you help me out with that? Of course, because I can do it fast, but I can't, right? I can't do it well fast. And I can't do everything. Even when I do it fast, and maybe even when I do it well, I can't do everything that I think I can. And so having that calendar of things that is literally showing me this is the amount of time you have, this is all the stuff that's going on for you, made it crystal clear where I had crossed my own boundaries in terms of capacity. And so that's why I find it is such a helpful exercise for people. It does not have to be the thing that your life revolves around. It's not something that you're going to take up and do for the rest, keep doing. It can be. Some people do that. But I think it's a really helpful exercise for getting a look at how you use your time and what your actual capacity is in terms of time and energy, in a way that we just don't have the means to do, I don't think, in any other way.
It's bringing it back to that awareness again, bringing awareness to where you have the time, where you don't have the time, because the reality is there are only 24 hours in the day.
Yeah.
And sleep needs to be a big chunk. We all know how important sleep is to us, to our physical health, our mental health. And so if you're trying to put in only so much is going to fit in there. And once you have a realization oh yeah, all these pieces aren't going to fit in this little window, that is a good, because what happens if you continue to overcommit yourself? You're not doing it well. You're not getting it done. You're letting people down.
Yep.
Then you're feeling crappy about yourself. All those things that go along with not getting our to-do list done.
Yeah. That kind of plays into something that I talk about in the very first chapter of the book, which is the validation spiral. And it is this process of continually overcommitting, continually saying yes because we want to be useful. We want to feel like we're contributing. We want to help people out, right? Like we have all of these natural desires. And again, the systems that we operate in amplify those natural desires by telling us, well, you're not useful, you're not valuable, you don't belong here, right? And so we squeeze all these things in as a way to sort of resist those feelings of not being worthy, not having that validation. And in that process of overcommitting, we actually undercommit to each of the things on our calendar or each of the things that we've said yes to. And undercommitment is simply not having the resources that is needed to do all the things we've said we're going to do. And I think that really, as much as overcommitment is a problem, undercommitment is a problem. They're really two sides of the same coin. And I think that for all of us out there who struggle with not feeling like you just can't fit it all in, feeling like you just don't have the energy, always feeling like you're trying to catch up. It's that undercommitment piece that I think is really valuable to look at, because it's one thing to say, oh yeah, I can squeeze that in. It's another thing to say, do I have what I need to do it well? Do I have what I need to do it in a way that's satisfying to me? Do I have it in a way, do I have what I need to do it in a way that is going to meet my expectations and others, good expectations? And if the answer is no, why would we say yes? Because when we say yes and we fail to meet those expectations, we fail for it to be satisfying or fail to do it well, we try to go back out and fit even more in because we're still chasing that feeling. So it is this spiral that we go through until we burn out. And for a lot of us, when we burn out, we sort of, clean the slate and say, okay, I'm going to be better about this now. But without the awareness, we just fall into the same traps again.
And because I feel like a lot of people, you mentioned the word boundary, they feel like, if I set a boundary, that's just rude. It's selfish. It's like, why? But the reality is you set that boundary, you're protecting all these other commitments, right? Because if you say yes to that next thing, it's not just how well or poorly am I going to do that commitment, but how is that going to impact all the other commitments that I've already made and are important to me.
Yep.
So it's a little bit of that filling up your cup before you fill up somebody else's, or putting your own oxygen mask on first. It all falls into that. And I agree with you. The overcommitting and undercommitting are pretty much the same, just the opposite side.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed this conversation, like really. And I'm going to buy your book. When is it coming out?
It comes out November 1st, but Amazon's shipping them already. So you can have it in 24 to 48 hours.
And
if you're willing to buy it from them.
I just signed up for, I made a book list on book. I don't even know what it's called right now. That's it. Bookshop.org. I'm so excited. Because my community, we have a book club. So I'm like excited to put all the books that I'm trying to read that I've overcommitted to reading.
Overcommitting on books is one area that I'm just fine with. I'm totally overcommitted.
They're not going anywhere. They're on my nightstand or in my Audible wish list. It's all good. I'll get to them at some point. Or if not, I'll be sharing them on my new list on book.org, book, whatever. So that's out. I wanted to ask you a couple questions.
Sure.
I try to ask them at the end of each podcast, but I'm not super consistent, as a lot of things in my business. But I feel like you're going to have great answers to both of these. One of them is the beginning. When I first started New World Normal, I thought that I wanted to help normalize some things, that we don't think of as normal in our society. Then as I started playing with the word normal, I realized I don't really like that word. Like, I feel like it's exclusive and inclusive. So that's when I decided, let's just disrupt normal. So if I gave you that magic wand that I love so much, and you were able to disrupt one societal norm, maybe we'll move it away from goal setting, since that's an easy one for you.
Yeah. Yeah. One societal norm. One thing that I think a lot about, because I have a lot of complicated feelings and a lot of weird, complicated experience with is our norms around health and what is healthy, and how that applies not only to things like, illness or disability and things like that, but also just like the daily choices that we make under the banner of health. Like, well, I'm trying to eat healthy, or I'm trying to be healthy and get out for a walk more often. We have such a moral framework for anything that we label as healthy that I think really excludes such a large part of the human experience. People with different bodies, people with different neurologies, people with different everything, but also the things that are enjoyable, right? Like, I love a cheeseburger. I love French fries. I love beer. Those things may not be quote unquote healthy, but they make me feel healthy in a different way. Like, healthy can be pleasure too. And I think that we could really benefit from rethinking the moral framework and the weightiness that we give this idea of healthy. And so I don't know, that might have totally been not what you're looking for, but that's one of the things that I think about a lot.
No, I love that. And I'm looking for anything and everything. I've actually been dealing with some autoimmune issues. And so I've been very strict with my diet, like to the point where I feel like I'm venturing into disordered eating, and I don't know that this is healthy. Like, need to figure this out. And so as I'm feeling myself getting better and starting to feel better in my body, and now recognizing I too love cheeseburgers and French fries. So how am I going to structure my life and my diet, my nutrition rather, the things that I'm eating, so that I can enjoy those things? I heard someone call it like the 80-20. Like, I'm clean, but I can still, when I go on, because I'm going on vacation with my friends next week and we're going to be in New York City, like, hello, food. I'm so excited. Like, so yeah, finding that balance of having the cheeseburger and the fries when you want. And the other thing I worry about with this healthy, quote unquote, label is the accessibility for a lot of people. Like, because eating healthy is really expensive.
Yeah. Health has become a status symbol, right? Like, even just now when you said 80-20, like, most of the time I'm clean. Like, the clean eating is a moral framework. It's a classist framework, right? Because what is dirt?
I've heard that.
Yeah. What is dirty food? What, if there's clean
Actually,
food,
I
there
prefer
has to be
dirty food. Like, yes, I prefer.
I know.
Give me microbes and some dirt. Like, come on.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm looking at it more of like, my body started to shut down. I had to make some
Totally.
shifts.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a completely different thing. But I think recognizing that where these language choices are also choices of morality and class and status is really important to disrupting that norm.
That is a very good point. And I'm going to sit with that one and do my best to change. There's other things about my vocabulary that I'm trying to change also.
Yeah.
That you discover
it's a continual process.
When you record a podcast and you're like, why do I say just so much? That's weird.
Mine used to be fantastic. I stopped.
Okay, then the other question I've been asking at the end is, life is crazy. Like we talked about, midterm election is in 2 weeks, a week and a half. I don't know. It's constant. We're constantly being bombarded by the news and personal things and food. And so I feel it's very important to take care of ourselves in whatever way fills us up. Like, maybe we like to take a walk, but maybe that's not accessible, or we just don't like to walk. What are things that you do? Do you have any routines or rituals that fill you up, that help you show up in the world as the best version of you?
Yeah, I have a lot of routines. As an autistic person, I am very routine oriented. My morning routine is extensive, but I would say that one of the things that I've found to be really stabilizing over the last 5 years, 6 years of just extreme instability in the world and extreme uncertainty is that I started running after a lifetime of saying I don't run for fun, right? After 35 years of not running for fun, I decided to try running for fun. And it was not fun at first, but now that time in the morning where I'm on my own, listening to my podcasts, pounding the pavement, pushing myself, right? Like really pushing that physical boundary is that to me is really profoundly stabilizing. And it's also, it, it sort of creates a space in which I have more control than probably at any other time of the day. And I find that to be really grounding as well. So that would be the main one. I've learned a lot about pacing myself. I've learned a lot about sustaining effort. I've learned a lot about turning down my competitiveness in that time every morning. And so that's probably my biggest
I
way.
love the through lines of those life lessons that come
Yeah.
from running. I ran in high school, and then I did not run for a very long period of time. And then I got back to it, and I found it very meditative, like a
Mhm.
moving and that the moving through the uncomfortable, like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, okay, I'm feeling better now.
Yeah. Yeah. This morning my program was a 6 mile run, and I had to take a different route because part of my route, my usual route, I can't go through if it's really early in the morning and dark. So I was kind of making things up as I go, which meant I didn't know kind of instinctively how far I'd gone. And I was thinking, oh, I've got to be around 4.5 miles. And I look at my watch and I was at like 3.4. And I was like,
That's
what?
not fair.
That is not right. I am tired. But I would say the second half of my run felt better than the first half of my run. And you're right, like, yeah, pushing. I'm not always big on pushing through discomfort, but there's also value in pushing through discomfort or knowing that if I stick with this, it's probably going to get better, or it's going to feel differently in the next mile that it did in the last mile. And that's a pretty great lesson to learn along the way,
Well,
I
that's
think.
the awareness again. Like, I'm aware
Yeah.
that this discomfort, if I push through, there's a reward. Other discomforts,
Hmm.
it's just torture. And why am I even making myself do that?
Yeah,
And just move that off of the to-do list in whatever way.
totally.
This has been amazing. Thank you so much. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on the interwebs? I will, of course, put all the links in the show notes, but it's always nice to hear it for those audible people, the audio. I don't know.
Auditory.
Auditory. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah,
Thank you.
auditory learners. Okay, so the best place to find me always is at explorewhatworks.com. You can find the book and links to everywhere you can buy it, which is anywhere you buy books, at explorewhatworks.com/book. And you can listen to the What Works podcast wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As you can probably tell, I really enjoyed that conversation. I think Tara is fantastic. I cannot wait to read her book. Super familiar with that validation spiral we discussed, and her suggestion of time blocking your entire day. That is going to be an excellent way to determine if you're actually just trying to do too much. Like, I feel like we constantly feel like we're doing too much. And I bet if we took the time to schedule it out, we would realize that we are trying to do too much. And so we're setting ourselves up for failure from the get-go. So I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. As always, if you did, please like, subscribe, share this podcast with someone, leave a review. The more you share the fact that you liked it, the more people will get to hear it. And that's just a win-win for everybody. Also, I wanted to let you know that we will not be posting any new episodes in December. It's a great time to catch up on some of the older episodes that you might have missed, but we will be coming back in 2023. I have some new formats in store. I'm hoping to switch to weekly episodes, might do some solo episodes. We'll likely have a few co-hosted episodes, and I think I'm also going to install a New World Normal hotline so you can get in on the action too and let us know directly how you're feeling about the show and the topics. Let us know if you want to hear about a particular topic, or just let us know what you think about what norms need to be disrupted, and maybe we'll use your voice on the show. Either way, it's been a great year providing fun content that helps you question what is happening in our world, both on a collective level and on an individual level. And I hope you enjoyed the conversations as much as I did. See you in 2023. Actually, before I run off to the new year, I encourage you to stay in touch with us over the next month. Just because we're not posting new episodes doesn't mean we're not still being active. You can follow us on Instagram at The New World Norm, and join us in the collective for fun monthly workshops and weekly intention setting meetings. It's lots of fun. Check it out at nwncollective.com. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our show. If you enjoyed what you heard, feel free to subscribe and leave us a review. If you didn't enjoy what you heard, reach out to us and let us know how we can make it better. This show really is about all of us, not just me and my guests, but how we can all work together to make the world just a little bit better. And if you'd like to connect with us in other ways, be sure to follow us on Instagram. We also have a free Facebook group where our fans of the show can connect and discuss their favorite episodes. And in addition to that, we have a membership platform, The Collective by New World Normal, where you will participate in monthly workshops, pop-up challenges, and weekly meetings to support a more intentional lifestyle. We have meaningful conversations about important topics, all in a space that is safe, supportive, and encouraging. So join us. And if you'd like to show us some more support, check out our intentional apparel shop online, New World Intentions. You'll find t-shirts, hats, totes, all with positive messaging to help you move more mindfully through your day and help you to create that new world normal. You can also check out our affiliate page, where you'll find our favorite eco-friendly household and personal care products. Thanks again for listening.